Come on over. Oh, no, I need to come over.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome to H&D Abroad. I'm Herman.
And I am Dee. We are so excited because, as you guys know, we've been traveling. But in the midst of our travels, at the forefront of our mind is putting our exit plan in motion and what to do with our house. As I'm looking in different social media platforms, it is probably one of the most asked questions. People are sharing, are you renting? Are you selling? Are you short-term renting? Are you, what are you going to do with this piece of the American dream? So I want to say welcome to those who usually join us. For those who are new to our channel,
please subscribe to our channel. Please like on this video. Please share it with others and hit that notification bell so that you see our next videos whenever they come up.
Yeah, so we are H&D Abroad. We help couples navigate, more than one person deciding to move abroad and seeing it as a plan A for creating generational wealth and for embracing a healthier lifestyle. So we have invited two of our good friends with us to discuss this topic. And so we're going to bring them into the room so that they can introduce themselves. And I can tell you guys why we are discussing this right now. Hey, Holly and Sean.
Hey, fam.
Hey. Good to see you guys again.
Absolutely. We had the honor of catching them in the middle of some of their vacation, which is great because you get to see in real time people living their lives for freedom. So it's great to have you with us today, for putting us into your schedule. We are so excited about this topic today with you and for you taking that time with us.
Could you introduce yourselves and Island Time Adventures so that our audience can get a sense of what you're doing, who you are, and where you are going?
So I'm Holly.
And I'm Sean.
And we are a married couple of almost 9 years. We've been married 9 years next month, and we live in sunny Tampa, Florida. We have a 7-year-old son, and he is largely the inspiration for our decision to take that leap. We are doing a Thailand takeoff next month, and that is going to be our first stop. We're moving to Southeast Asia, and we could not be more excited about it.
Awesome. I have been combing the internet for this information, and Holly put in the Exodus Summit Facebook group the sale. I mean, Sean, y'all have done house repairs. You are selling the most beautiful. I love kayaking, so I understand the pain of letting go of the things you have so lovingly acquired. But it's a move, but it's not an all-out move. So can you explain where you are on this journey with your home?
Yeah. Well, like you said, about 2 weeks ago, we had a huge yard sale, sold the majority of our things. We have a few things left that need to go. We're clearing out our house that we live in, our primary house, because it is going on the market as either a midterm or long-term leasing situation. So we are going to be renting our house out. Fully furnished. Mm-hmm. And we're leaving.
So what's the comfort level of knowing that someone will be in your house?
And I want Holly to answer this question, and I want Sean to answer, because I'm finding that Herman's feelings aren't necessarily kind of parallel to the emotion that is touched in me when I'm thinking about someone else being in my house.
Um, okay, so fortunately for us, we do have another house in another state. Um, and we bought that house specifically as an Airbnb type property. So we bought it specifically for the purpose of short-term rental.
Okay.
The reason why I bring that house up is because we bought it as a business, even though we invested blood, sweat, and tears in getting it ready for the market, we knew that it was a business. We knew not to get attached to it. We knew things would get damaged, things would get used. People might do things in the house that we wouldn't necessarily want them to do. But it's not really our business because it is our business, if that makes sense. We can't be too attached to it. And so I now, even though we've lived in this home for 7 years and we have done so much to this house to get it ready for, I mean, to make it what we want, you know, it's like our little dream house. But now we have to turn that switch off and we have to think of it as a business. It is no longer our home. It is a business.
Can't take it personal.
How do you feel, Sean?
I'm fine with it, honestly, for the simple fact that, yeah, it's a business. I can't have any attachments to it. Granted, all the work, blood, sweat, and tears we're putting in this house, like I'm still doing things from time. Majority of the big things are done, but I don't have any attachments to it. This is what's going to fuel what we're trying to do to roam the world, basically. So I'm ready for it.
And I think that's an important distinction that you all have made. I think a lot of the struggle that I've heard from people about it is they're looking at this home as my what if. You know, what if I have to come back and then I have to get people out of my house? And you all are transitioning as if you are selling the house, as if it's like, you know, once I sold the house, I left the house. So if something were to happen and you were to come back, you're looking at different options. And these houses are simply business. So you're not looking at coming back to this space at all, which takes some of the attachment away. You know, we haven't been in this home long. And we bought this home with investment in mind, but probably not as soon as we're now considering it. So we're still in the warming up phase of our home. So it's still personal to us. Our adult children, we're still trying to get them out of here. You know, so, so there's a piece of the active part of the house. You know, we haven't even the paint color is still what they painted it. We haven't painted it what we wanted it to be. You know, that kind of thing. So there's an active part of the house that has an attachment level that I think we're struggling through. Or what a lot of people are, on the other hand, they've been in their house decades. It is their house. They have history. And so moving away, I think sometimes the move away process for people, especially for people of color, we still are struggling with that. I'm leaving and not I'm going for a long visit. How are you all making that mental transition? How did you all decide to make that mental transition from we're going to be gone a long time to we are gone?
That's a great question, Herman. You know, obviously, we will come back at some point because we do have 2 properties in the United States. We have friends and family. We never know what the future holds and when we might need to come back and for what reasons, right? We don't necessarily see if we come back to the United States to live. We don't have a plan to live in that house. Because to us, that's kind of like backtracking. And we had decided that if we wanted to come back to the United States, that we would rather live RV life and have the ability to travel and go wherever we want. So that could mean 6 months in Florida, a couple months in California, going to see my parents in Missouri. We have a lot more flexibility that way.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I was watching content creator Lynette Adkins, her post about I sold everything and left America. really got me thinking about, the difference between, mentally what you have to say to yourself. Am I traveling or am I really leaving things behind? I feel that for me, a home at my age represents a piece of my belonging. And so the decision to either keep it or sell it really is still kind of emotionally attached. How you are framing it, I don't consider I'm going to dissolve a business partnership to begin a new business, and I don't have that same emotional attachment to that. And so how you are approaching how Lynette Adkins is approaching it is, I can come back. I'm not at it. This is not at a loss. And I love how you all are framing it in that way. Did you all have to, how did the decision, where was the decision about the house on your timeline of what needs to be covered for a couple to decide to move abroad? Which came first, the decision to move, or, hey, what are we going to do with the house if we ever leave?
Well, we knew we wanted to leave well before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, we really got serious and started what I would call a slow purge of all of our things that we know we didn't, we started purging clothes and things that we knew we didn't need and hadn't used in a very long time. So we've been purging for like 3 years. So we always knew if we left this house, we would rent it out. And that has been embedded in me embedded in us by my dad and my mom, who have always told us, if you don't have to sell a house, don't sell it, rent it out. So my mom and dad have 8 houses, and they used to own a small apartment complex. They still have the 8 houses to this day. And, then they live in their primary home, and they rent all of those out and have been renting them out for years. So they could have sold houses, but they didn't. So they've always told us, like, if you have a house that you can rent it out instead of selling it.
All right, so let's touch on that, because that can be an anxiety point. You no, you're good.
There we go.
The property management issue can be a bit of a touch point. I'm walking away from this house. I'm going to be far away from this property. Someone else is going to be in this property, and it is still in my name. How do you safely feel? What resources are you using for the property management of that home when you're not there? We were in a rental, and it had property management, and it had a variety of property managers. And you watch reports nowadays, and you hear about houses getting torn up. You hear about people trying to sell people's houses when they're away. There was a couple that was Airbnb-ing their home, and Airbnb renters came in and were Airbnb-ing it to other people to get money out the house. So there's all these fear factor stories that come out.
Or real estate agents who knew it was an Airbnb property putting a for sale sign and trying to sell it from under. I mean, it's just, those are the crazy squatter stories that you hear. What steps have you done to insulate yourself from some of those issues?
Well, number one, we have excellent cameras on both of the properties, so we could see everything that's going on the exterior of the properties, whether it would be someone trying to sneak an animal in, or someone bringing, you know, at our Airbnb property, if someone were bringing in more guests than what was on their booking. And so, you know, then through, when you're talking about using a platform such as Vrbo or Airbnb for a short-term rental situation, you communicate through the platform and you are covered by those platforms. So like Airbnb has air cover if someone damages something. I have seen things on the camera that I did not like and have messaged the people real quick, like, it's time to go. You need to go. And you have this long before the police come to the house. And
it alerts us all the time. We're pretty much on top of it. It'll alert us at like 3, 4 o'clock. As a matter of fact, I woke her up a few days ago at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, who's this guy standing at the door? Like, it automatically lets us know. So we start snooping, who's this person? We go through.
But he was a registered guest. He just was checking in very early in the morning.
Yeah. So we have to put in comparison to, it would be the same thing as what we're going to do with this house here. We have to treat it pretty much, it's like out of state, but except we're out of the country. We're going to treat it as if it's the same as our other property in Missouri.
So you're going to individually, you're going to property manage the house yourself. You're not using a property management company.
Right. Yeah, at least at first. We've successfully managed the Airbnb. Well, I was doing that while Sean worked his 9 to 5. So I've done that for over a year now. And with the help of a house cleaner that's local to the house, have not really had any major issues that couldn't be handled by myself or a maintenance person. So like if I have to hire a plumber, we have a keypad on the door. I can write up a code and have someone come right in the house. I can unlock the door and lock the door from my phone. So I can change locks. I can grant access, deny access. So, you know, it's technology has made it very easy to self-manage. However, I do understand that is not for everybody. And we probably have an advantage coming from a family, like growing up with parents that property manage for themselves. And my dad told me that there was one point when my dad had an apartment complex, and they hired a property manager, him and his partners. He was involved with this with 2 other couples. So there were 6 people that own this unit. And they hired a property manager one year, actually for the first few years. And the year that they fired the property manager is the year they became profitable, and they never went back. Wow. And they just felt that the property manager, for what they were paying, wasn't putting in the type of work that they would put in.
Right.
And I, you know, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I have kind of inherited my dad's personality type of needing to be in control, or being that type of person. Like, if it's going to be done right, I have to be the one to do it. And so I'm very hands-on. So I said, you know, I'm going to do this myself. And now that Sean has more time to help out, he will help out with the management. And then if we felt like, hey, you know, we're in Thailand having the time of our life, we don't want to, you know, be involved with this house that much anymore, then we would get a property manager.
What kind of
go
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, so we also, I mean, we have things in place as well, as far as like if anything goes wrong with the property, we have a maintenance guy that can come over and fix any of the problems. Shouldn't be too many problems, because practically everything we've done to this property is new. There shouldn't be any issues, but if that were to happen, we have that in place. We have people that can check up on the place and make sure everything is kosher.
Did you have to go through a lot of regional and zoning area information or paperwork to make sure that your area, your house was allowable for Airbnb, or because of the area you were in, that wasn't an issue?
Our house in Missouri, is in an area where you can do Airbnb. The city doesn't get involved with it, so they don't have any rules or regs against it or for it. Either way, they're just said we're not being involved with Airbnb, so do what you will. And you brought up a really great point, because it's extremely important if you're going to put your home on the market as a short-term rental to know what your city and county allow, and if you're in an HOA to know what your HOA allows, because you know, that could mean that you don't have that option. So for instance, where we live in Florida, we live in a city of Oldsmar, which is just right outside Tampa.
Mhm.
That city does not allow short-term rentals, so we cannot Airbnb.
Yeah, that's I feel like sometimes the counties intentionally create the gray areas. And so we're looking at hiring an attorney to help us to navigate that, so that we are, that we're fully within, because the HOA can do, they can do a lot. And I know HOAs are abundant in Florida.
You have to look at those bylaws to make sure, if you can or cannot.
You don't want to get furnished up and set up shop for an Airbnb, and 3 months down the line, you're told you can't be doing this, because then you've spent all money on furnishings and things that now you have to try to sell in order to get a long-term tenant in the house.
If restrictions weren't an issue, do you have a preference of renting versus Airbnb?
Airbnb all day.
Yeah.
All day.
Make the money much faster.
And the reason why I say that is because when you think about the nightly rent that you can get on a home versus what you could get if you just put it out there for a long-term tenant, you can make a lot more money doing short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when you're renting to someone as an Airbnb, they look at it as your place. When you rent to someone as a long-term tenant, they treat it as their place.
Correct.
So they're coming in, they're wanting to paint walls, they're wanting to
bring in all their
put
stuff.
holes in the walls to put their pictures up. With an Airbnb, you set it and people come in, treat it like a hotel room, and they leave.
Mm-hmm.
Understand.
Yeah. How are your neighbors? Because I looked at your signs. I loved, let's see, what was it? We're leaving for Thailand. What was you had like a little phrase, Holly, about, how have your neighbors been aware of your process, and how will you use them as kind of your eyes and ears, additional eyes and ears on the property, or how are you involving the neighbors that you've had for 7 years in your process?
Or not.
Yeah, or not.
A lot of them have honestly, like quite a few of them have said like, hey, I can be your eyes and ears. Like they have offered to help, when we're away. I recently did something for one of the neighbors. I fixed their fence, and, she's like, what I owe you? I'm like, don't worry about it. She's like, well, how about this? I'll be your eyes and ears. I'll go over there and I'll make sure and I'll check to see if everything is fine. I'm like, that's the type of neighbors that we need.
Yes.
And it's been quite a few.
We also did something very strategic. When we did our yard sale, we printed out a sign. We live in a townhome community. We printed out letters and took them and knocked on every single door. And we informed our neighbors that we were hosting a yard sale. And we invited them to also use that day to bring their own items out and sell. So our townhouses don't really have yards, so there was no place to really have a yard sale, but we invited everyone to take their 2 parking spots and bring out their items. And we spoke, to everyone that opened the door for us. We spoke to them, told them who we were, what we were doing. We also mentioned in the letter that we were moving, and that's why we're doing the yard sale. But hey, here's when it is. Here's what you need to do if you want to be involved. And several people were involved, and we got to meet people that we hadn't met before. I had some great conversations. Some people were extremely inspired by what we were doing, and just thought it was great and wanted to know more about it and came by the sale so that they could chat with us more about what we're doing and why we're going to Thailand. And then also, there were people who didn't sell things themselves, but still came by to shop with us. And, we made some friends in the process. Some people we have, waved to, but we didn't really know them well. And now it's like we know quite a bit about them, and they seem a little bit invested in what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up with neighbors that my parents knew by name. Not just because my mom would send me over to Miss Doreen's house to get a cup of sugar, but her kids were my sister and I's ages, and so there was kind of that built-in relationship. It's good to hear that you all have kind of that community feel as well. There was a video that we did probably when we first started our channel about habits you should start doing before you move abroad, and knowing your neighbors is one of them. And I can see this process really benefiting from, at least knowing the name of your neighbors, them being aware of you and how your property is transitioning, because a lot of things happen, even with cameras, even with, the best intentions, eyes and ears of a person.
One of the things that we talk about a lot here is community. And we talk about community in relationship to the relocation process, the Blaxit process. But community habits start right here. Our neighbor across the street and we moved into these homes within days of each other. Yeah. And he turned out to be the guy who put in our security system for ADT. So it worked out. So when I have problems, I just walk across the street and like, hey, I need you to come check this. I don't have to call the security service to get it worked. He lived right across the street. And those, when our children were little and we moved into our first home, our neighbors on the three sides of us became our security system. We couldn't afford a security system then. But we went out of town, I'd walk to the three houses and say, we're going to be gone for a certain number of days. And it got to the point they would come and say, hey, we're going to be gone. Could you keep an eye on the house? Or, hey, I'm expecting a package. Could you pick it up? My neighbor came and said, somebody stole something from your yard. Those bits of information, you create the community, which makes it easier, I think, from what I'm hearing from you, to say, hey, we're leaving this property, we're managing this property, but we also have a community that we're quote unquote leaving behind that is a part of our security network.
We've got several people who have joined. So if you have questions for Holly and Sean about their move, about considering short-term rental, long-term rental, or just the mindset of, how should I get resources if I'm considering this? Holly and Sean, do you have kind of a top 3 or top 5 things you think people that are considering holding on to their home that they should have in place before leaving?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. Number one, you have to have, and these are in no particular order from me, you need a good lease. You need a lease that will hold up in court. And I know that a lot of us are, that are moving abroad are trying to watch our funds so that we have the funds that we want when we get abroad. But this would be a place to spend some money and work with a lawyer to make sure that your lease has everything in it that needs to be in it to protect your property.
Ironclad.
So that would be number one, an excellent lease, especially if you're going to rent it furnished, because that's even a little bit different. There is short-term like Airbnb, there's long-term like you're a landlord renting to someone for a year or two, and then there's midterm, like using furnished finders for like travel nurses, renting to someone for like 3, 6, 8 months. So need to consider how long are you looking to rent your property, and the lease needs to be different for a midterm than it would be for a longer term.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some things to have in place. Definitely cameras. I personally wouldn't want to rent the house out with keys. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times growing up, my dad had to stop what he was doing and go unlock a door for someone. And that's just in 2023. You should never have to do that. People, please don't do that. Please put a keyless entry on your home so that you can change the codes, allow people in. You know, our son has a code. So when he walks and scoots home from school on his scooter, he lets himself in the door. We don't have to worry about handing a 7-year-old a key to the house and then him losing it and it getting into someone else's hand. He has a key he has a code that is just for him. We all have a code to the door. Our renters, our cleaners all have a different code so that you know who's coming in your house.
And then what time of the day at that too?
Our code, yeah, exactly. On the apps that go with these keyless pads, you can see at what time the door was unlocked, how was it unlocked, who unlocked it, what code was used, things like that. So that would be important.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sean? What would you?
Well,
what
so
would
the
you
security
suggest?
cameras, like I said, the security cameras is vital because, like, you can see your traffic going in and out of your property. Of course, outside, not inside. It's vital. We've saved ourselves a headache a few times. Like majority, we've had good people, tenants come in, but those security cameras, it's vital. You have to have them.
What about?
And you can't have cameras inside the house legally. Okay, so if someone is thinking, well, I'll just put a camera inside the house, I hope no one's thinking that. But
don't do that.
just in case someone is thinking, well, I'll just put a camera inside the living room and let them know that there's a camera inside the living room. That's not going to work out well for you.
Yeah, and sad to say, it's important to say that.
Yeah,
it's important to say that. Yeah, that can go sideways. Yeah, you in
that can get you in a lot of hot water legally.
Yeah.
And you know, we have to just think about how would you feel if you were renting a house from someone and all of a sudden you found a camera in the kitchen or the living room or something. I mean, you would be hot.
Yes.
So, you know, we just want to be transparent about that cameras only on the exterior.
Yeah, security, not invasion of privacy.
Let's see. So we're
And also,
navigating.
if you don't,
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, also, if you don't have a history or you feel like you don't have the tolerance for managing a property yourself, there is nothing wrong with hiring a property manager. Don't feel like that's something that you have to do just because, you know, we said that, you know, that my father found it to be more profitable without one. That's also means more hours out of your day that you are hands-on with your property. And if that's not for everybody. So go on and pay somebody their 15, 20, 25% and let them manage that property if this is not your wheelhouse, because it does take a lot of patience.
Absolutely. How are you navigating the insuring of the property? Did that impact whether you chose short-term rental, midterm, you know, how the direction you chose? Because that was an area we've been trying to navigate. Our insurance, homeowners insurance agent said, okay, where are you all going? And I said, we're not going to have another resident inside the US. So you've got homestead you have to consider as a part of, you know, the kind of leasing that you're doing, but you also need to insure your property and make sure that your insurance, your property insurer will insure based on the kind of the way that you're going to be using the property once you leave the States. How was that navigating process?
It's not very difficult. I mean, you just have, we experienced this with our Airbnb, so we know what to expect going into this, that you do have to change the insurance, and it may cost more, or, influence your premiums when they know that the house is being rented out. So you just have to, get a good insurance company, compare quotes, but it's really not that difficult.
And also too, like if it's sort of like long term, we've said to put in the factor in the cost of having the tenant have renters insurance. They have to have that.
That's important to include in your lease, to make sure that your tenant has renters insurance, and to make sure that they name you on the insurance, so that way and make sure that it's paid a year up front, or however long for the duration of your lease, because that way they can't cancel it later. And if they were to cancel it later, you would be notified. So that should go in your lease. I'm not a lawyer or anything. Talk to your lawyer about your lease again, but that's just a call out that, they should have renters insurance, and you should know about it.
Okay. One of the things that we talk about is legacy building. And with you having a young person in your house, is a part of this process for legacy building, or is it primarily financial?
That's a great question. We have an LLC called Sky Heritage Homes LLC. Sky, SKY, is our son's initials, Sonny Kai Young. Sky Heritage Homes.
Got it.
Just as our parents have built a legacy with their properties, to where my dad has already told me that when they pass away, all of the kids and grandkids will receive 2 houses. I mean, think that's amazing.
Yeah,
that is amazing. And we want to do the same or something similar for our son. So that is why we named our LLC after him. And when we get abroad, we are one of the reasons we're managing our property is because we want to manage for other people. So if you're someone sitting out there thinking, oh my gosh, the idea of putting my home on Airbnb, having to deal with people back and forth, that sounds really crazy to me. Call me up and I will manage your Airbnb for you. I have all the systems in place. I can do it, and I charge a very small percentage, a very competitive fee for that. And that is what we plan to do going forward. As a matter of fact, my dad has some properties that he's going to be converting to Airbnb. And he's like, Holly, I already know I'm not cut out for the Airbnb world because it's customer service, and I don't want to do customer service. I don't want to have to be nice to people. I don't want to have to message people back and forth. And so if you know that's not for you, it's not that much money to pay someone a small percentage of what you're making on your Airbnb to let someone else do the work for you, even on a long-term rental.
Absolutely.
This may, and you can tell me it's none of my business. How do you, and this is generalities, of course, how do you base how you're going to price your home? Are you basing it based on the worth of the home in the area? Are you pricing your home rentals based on, I mean, because I'm pretty sure somebody's going to ask that, how do I decide what I should charge? If my mortgage is, $2,000 a month, and I'm renting it out, am I charging $2,500? How do you look at, how do you go about looking at what's fair market pricing for renting / Airbnb?
Well, for the Airbnb, there was a couple of things. The first time there was a website called AirDNA, and AirDNA basically gives you the stats on whatever city that your property is in. It will tell you how much it is average, nightly average rate, monthly average rate, what you will make like monthly, what are the good seasons and the bad seasons. They give you all the stats. So based off of that, we look at our mortgage.
Uh-oh, we've lost him a moment. Let's give them a second to.
If you all have questions, please put them in the chat, because as you can tell, Holly and Sean are well versed, not only for the house that they're living in, but they have that experience while they are, transitioning. So please put those questions in the chat. I'm going to go right back to Lynette Adkins. A point that she said in her video, I sold everything and left America. She said, do what you want to do. This is your life. Just like we have talked about not being held back because of my hair, you also don't want to be held back from making your transition abroad because you're not sure what you should do with your home. So Holly and Sean are back. You guys ready to jump right in?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem. You were telling us about the pricing.
Yes. Yeah, just based off of the mortgage. From there, we just figure out like what is a comfortable, price that we want to charge, and like what we want to get back per month, but also to make sure that everything else is covered, all of the utilities, the mortgage, and everything, just what's comfortable.
Okay.
So the air DNA was very important. Like I said, you can do the stats on all of that. For this property, this one's a little different because it is going to be a more longer term. I don't know, how did we necessarily?
So we looked around at what other units were right in our townhome community. We asked asked neighbors what they were paying for rent, because most of the people that live in the townhomes where we're at.
Technology is technology, ladies and gentlemen. It's really great information. And if you have any questions, please provide them with us. We'll jump in.
Okay, hold on. Here we go.
Okay, sorry about that. For some reason, it's been cutting us off. But so we asked neighbors that we're friends with already, hey, well, how much are you paying for rent? Or if someone new moved in, we would introduce ourselves. We've been doing this for the last couple of years, like, oh, what are you guys paying? And so we already knew what people were paying. And then we looked around on Zillow to see what other properties were renting for. So, when you want to rent, Zillow's not just for buying and selling. You can also list your property for rent on Zillow, and you can search for homes for rent on Zillow. So we could see what other people were paying in the area. And then most recently, we met with a realtor who does tenant placement, and he was able to give us some comps off of the MLS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, using those tools, those resources, we've got about a year to a year and a half. So, taking a look around, like you said, at property managers, because I think that's a good backup to do before you leave, kind of vetting some folk, seeing what experience, because we have been renters of a home before in our area, we kind of know what to expect, what a renter expects, and what I should expect as someone that is renting my home, that a property management company might be asking me to fund. So Holly is giving some great information. If you know that you are thinking about renting, what was your top reason? If you all want to put that in the chat, what was your top reason for deciding to keep your home versus selling it? I would definitely be interested in seeing and knowing that, because we did a poll, Holly, this week on YouTube. To ask people, and I was really surprised to see that a lot of people were saying, I want to sell it. I just don't want the headache. So, you've been talking about some of the headache parts, but what are some of the headache parts that you know that people, if they had a solution for them, might consider holding on to their home?
Well, I will say that right now, with where the prices are for housing, depending on what city you're in, this may be an excellent time to sell your home. So while we plan on keeping ours, there definitely has been the thought about selling, just because we could really make a nice profit off of this home. The temptation is very strong, but we said we would give it a year, because we live in such a hot market that we don't really see it calming down for a while, because the market is not saturated here. There are so many people looking to buy, and there's not enough inventory. So it has really, really helped our values go up. So I mean, we could make a good amount of money. So we may sell next year, if we may, but that's an option. So if you are living somewhere and you're thinking about selling and you don't want to be dealing with the headache of renting, and the money is right, I mean, sell. It's another, it goes back to like not being detached, right? Like, selling doesn't mean you failed. And if you invest your profits wisely, and one day you want to come back, I mean, you'll be able to get in the market again.
And that was going to be my question: is what would you advise? How would you advise someone if they've decided to rent or Airbnb their home, they've moved abroad or not moved abroad, they're managing property? At what point in their struggle should they decide, yeah, it's time to let it go? How do you help somebody make that decision, or encourage somebody to make that decision if they're going to decide?
How are you, what would need to be on the sell side to really make you say this is a better option than property management?
It would have to be a financial decision, not an emotional one for me. So the headache, for me saying, oh, this is a headache, that to me is an emotional decision. Maybe pass it off to a property manager first. But the only reason I would sell is because it would be a smart financial decision. I really do think of houses as a business.
Excellent. I want to say thank you to you and to Sean and to your son, who was very patient with us during this broadcast. Thank you so much to our viewers that joined us today, because we had some technical difficulty last week when we were trying to join when we were in Sevilla. So thank you, Holly and Sean. Thank you. Please go out to Island Time Adventures, because they are saying goodbye within the next maybe 4 to 6 weeks. So you can see their journey to Thailand. Lynette Adkins literally sold everything, got a one-way ticket to Thailand. So you might meet her when you get there. So thank you so much.
That's we appreciate you guys having us on. Thank you so much for being flexible with lifing over here. We decided to surprise Sonny. We're taking him to a special concert to celebrate the fact that yesterday was his last day of public school forever. We are unschooling him, and so we're taking him to his first concert. He's super excited. We appreciate you guys. We love your channel, love your platform, love the questions that you're asking, because these are really important questions, and I definitely understand that, especially for us as Black people, we don't always have, if we didn't have an example of someone who is doing these. So the fact that you're asking these questions about real estate, I think it's awesome. We got to help each other out.
Absolutely.
You all have been great to have on today. Thank you so much for taking the time.
We will check in once you all have moved. So let's keep in touch for sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And goodbye to our audience for now.
We're H&D Abroad. I'm Herman.
And I'm Dee.
We'll see you soon.